Hello, and thank you for joining. I'm Grace, Communications Coordinator at Ann Arbor's Office of Sustainability and Innovations, and welcome to Greenlight, where we dig into sustainability in Ann Arbor with the residents who are envisioning, creating, and establishing a sustainable and equitable future for our community. Supporting these goals and presenting this series is A20, the city's plan, framework, vision, and associated actions for creating and implementing a just transition to carbon neutrality community-wide by the year 2030. Today, we're shining the green light on Mike Garfield, Director of the Ecology Center, to learn about the history of Earth Day in Ann Arbor and the Ecology Center. Thank you for joining.
Thanks, Grace. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So to start us off, give us the elevator pitch of who you are and what you do.
Well, I've devoted my career to fighting for communities, dealing with the impacts of the climate crisis, toxic chemicals, the impacts of the impact of waste from the modern economy. I'm a dad, a husband, a brother. My wife, Catherine, teaches at U of M, and my son's a high school junior in the Ann Arbor district.
Oh, wow. Very, very deeply within the community then.
We are.
That's awesome. The first Earth Day celebration was here in Ann Arbor in 1970. Tell me what that looked like.
When Earth Day took place in 1970 across the United States in communities everywhere, it was the largest protest in United States history. And be clear, it was a protest. We had seen in the country the civil rights marches and actions, the protests against the Vietnam War, the women's marches, and people looking to shine a light on environmental problems were calling for changes and federal protections from very visible problems of the day. There was smog that made the air unbreathable in big cities. Fires had broken out on rivers in the Midwest, in Cleveland, in Detroit, and elsewhere. Oil slicks were washing up on beaches on the Atlantic and Pacific coasts. People were demanding action. And when people came out in April of 1970, like I said, it became the largest protest in U.S. history, and it led to the establishment of all of America's foundational environmental laws. Now, in Ann Arbor, the organizers here decided, well, we'd like to do ours a little early. They wanted to make sure that students would be around, and the original date was after the semester would end at University of Michigan. So they decided to hold Earth Day 1970 in March. And it became, since it was the first one taking place across the country, it became truly notable and attracted the nationally prominent speakers. It drew attention from all over the country. Eventually, 50,000 people came out to 4 days worth of teach-ins and protests all around the city of Ann Arbor. The keynote address filled Chrysler Arena, and at the end of it all, the organizers decided that they needed to start something to keep the spirit of Earth Day alive, and they started what's become the Ecology Center.
Well, that's great, because my next question was, how did that lead to the creation of the Ecology Center?
Organizers wanted to keep the spirit of protest and environmental action alive, and it led them to create an organization that, like I said, today's the Ecology Center, and 55 years later, we're keeping that spirit alive today.
Absolutely. Tell me about the Ecology Center and what you folks do.
The Ecology Center works for environmental health and justice throughout the state of Michigan. We've been active in Ann Arbor, Washtenaw County, and all over the region, working on issues from recycling and zero waste to protecting people from toxic chemicals, and dealing with the climate crisis. Our programs and major initiatives today include addressing state environmental and climate policy, working on, we've developed an air monitoring system throughout the city of Detroit to build awareness around air pollution and ways to protect the air, and communities that historically have suffered a lot of the burdens of pollution.
Yeah.
We work to protect communities from lead poisoning and from toxic chemicals. And we do a lot of work. We do a lot of work in the area of recycling and solid waste policy, and even started the very first recycling program in the state of Michigan way back in 1970.
Wow.
That today has become Washtenaw County's major community-based recycling operation, Recycle Ann Arbor,
Wow.
which is a nonprofit subsidiary of the Ecology Center.
And you said that was the first in the state of Michigan?
It was.
That is so cool. And cool that it, I don't know, has continued on. I mean, I obviously am very familiar with Recycle Ann Arbor. How has the Ecology Center and overall environmental activism evolved over the years?
You know, I'll just speak to my experience on those issues. Dating back to the late 1980s and 1990s, environmental issues and concerns were, I'd say, somewhat marginal in the society at large. They were not considered a high priority by business leaders, political leaders, the culture around us.
Yeah.
That's changed dramatically over the years, and I think it's one of the great successes of the environmental movement and of the Ecology Center here locally. Today, all sectors of our society, I believe, have come to acknowledge that we, as a species, have to come to grips with the climate crisis, the loss of biodiversity, and the threat to the planetary boundary. There are no major sectors of society today that don't acknowledge that, except maybe the sector that's running the federal government right now, afraid to say.
Yeah. I was gonna follow it up, and then I lost my train of thought. What was I gonna say?
Well, just to go on that point a little bit.
Continue.
You know what we never even conceived of 30 years ago is that all major companies across the United States, pretty much around the globe, would devote departments to sustainability, that there would be vice presidents of sustainability in major companies, that businesses could, small businesses and entrepreneurs could develop business models and products that would try to address the problem of toxic chemicals and in stuff that would try to reduce carbon impacts, that clean energy would be something that could be provided economically and at scale. That was a dream of environmentalists 30 years ago, and today it's a reality.
Yeah.
It's not always put in place at scale. It's competing at this point for political favor, for policy support, and to win in the market. There are a lot of changes that will need to take place for it to really take hold throughout the economy, but it exists at many levels now in ways that really we only dreamed of back then.
Absolutely. You know, you're talking about the way that you see it reflected in the culture. I feel like that's something I am very fortunate to see reflected in my life as a young person stepping into this world. This is something that the generations before me worked on that now just is my reality. That's just what I associate with Ann Arbor, is this passion for the environment and for climate action. That's just part of the fabric. But, you know, there are people long before me who were very intentionally knitting that fabric, and I'm very appreciative of it.
Yeah, I mean, when I was in my 20s, the environmental visionaries were hippies on the one hand and thinkers on the other, and today you see everyone from tech entrepreneurs to scientists to people trying to make a difference in all walks of life who are embracing it, along with the hippies and visionaries.
Absolutely. And I mean, it's even trendy now amongst my generation to thrift when you can and to bring your reusable tote bags. It's a cool culture shift amongst everyone. What historically do you think some of the struggles have been, the hurdles that environmental activism has had to overcome in Ann Arbor?
Well, well, in Ann Arbor, like around Michigan and around the country, we've seen progress in rollbacks that happen in cycles. You know, thinking globally, after those foundational environmental laws were passed at the federal level in the 1970s, laws like the Environmental Protection Act, the Clean Air Act, the Safe Water Drinking Act, and other major environmental laws, we saw a massive rollback of those laws attempted in the 1980s. President Reagan appointed Ann Gorsuch Burford, the mother of current Supreme Court Justice Neil Gorsuch. He appointed her to run the EPA and effectively dismantle environmental laws, much like we're seeing today with Lee Zeldin seeking to change the EPA's mission to promoting economic development with not a concern for environmental protection. We've seen this time and again. We've seen it in Michigan too. After Michigan passed a number of environmental laws under Governor Bill Milliken, a Republican, in the 1970s and 80s, we saw some of the key statutes repealed or rolled back in the 1990s under Governor Engler, and those rollbacks have affected work in Ann Arbor because, like any city, Ann Arbor relies greatly on collaboration with state and federal government, and no matter how committed Ann Arbor might be to environmental protection over the years, a lot of our progress has depended on supportive programs and policies at the state and federal level. So we've had to roll with the punches here too.
Absolutely. Rolling with the punches is exactly it. What do you think have been some of the key moments in Ann Arbor's history of climate action? Turning points maybe, or big wins?
Ann Arbor's got a fantastic history when it comes to climate action in particular. Looking way back, even before my time, Ann Arbor started one of the first energy efficiency programs in the country for low-income households. That was run by the Ecology Center back in the 1970s, 80s, and 90s. Ann Arbor then started, again, one of the very first energy offices within city government back, I think, in the 1980s, and that was devoted to taking advantage of clean energy information at the time for city operations. And Ann Arbor became a leader in energy efficiency and what we'd call clean energy today, just in how we managed city buildings, city facilities, and handled everything that is sort of a precursor to what OSI and the A20 program is doing today. I mean, moving forwards, I remember that when there was a budget crunch in the 2000s, there were proposals to close that energy office, and the Ecology Center and community activists said, no, we can't close this office. It does so many important things for Ann Arbor and for the larger cause of addressing climate problems. And then I'll speak to some of the Ecology Center's work with the city of Ann Arbor after that. In 2009, not long after President Obama was inaugurated the first time, and Congress had, or the House of Representatives had passed the first significant climate bill to ever get voted on in the United States Congress, and optimism was at an all-time high. The Ecology Center brought in the writer and activist Bill McKibben to mobilize the community to act on climate. And like communities around the country and around the world, we started to act on climate. After that event, the Ecology Center started what we called Ann Arbor 350 to start organizing for climate action. And a few years later, the city of Ann Arbor adopted its first climate action plan. And a few years after that, the Ecology Center and some of our partners in the community led a campaign to dramatically expand transit service in Ann Arbor, Ypsilanti, and Ypsilanti Township. A few years after that, we helped build community support to adopt the A20 plan, which was developed with hundreds and hundreds of community people giving input to the plan. And a couple of years after that, the Ecology Center and other local advocates helped build support to fully fund the A20 plan through a millage proposal that went before voters and won dramatically. And just speaking, just speaking to that final funding plan, that proposal passed with over 70% of the vote, and that is no small thing. And I've, in my years, I've worked on other issues that went to a vote of the people. And one thing that has changed over time is that commitment to environmental action and sustainability in this community has always been strong, and it just keeps on growing, even more and more in the current day.
That's really encouraging to hear you tell it like that, despite the setbacks, the momentum that we see continue to build over time.
Well, I don't think I need to, I don't think I need to talk here about all of the great programs that are getting rolled out under the A20 umbrella. There are so many. You need a whole program. You need a whole program just to go through all of that, and probably specific ones to talk about some of the more complex and important ones. To the whole movement dynamics that we're talking about.
Yeah.
I think we're under a significant amount of threat now, and I don't know all the details of the threats to local programs here from the federal directives being issued by the Trump administration right now. But we have seen orders for rollbacks of many of those environmental regulations that I've been talking about. We've seen funding freezes for major grants to support programs funded under the federal climate law passed a couple of years ago, freezes on scientific research that affect a lot of people who work at federal labs in Ann Arbor. So there are a lot of stresses on the system right now, and we're going to need to fight to sustain the progress that we've been making over the years and the great progress we've made locally in the last few years.
Yeah, I think something that definitely has been a driving force is this is an outlet for members of the community to take action when we see these things nationally happening. This is a place that we can get involved because there is that support in Ann Arbor. And I know that that's something that I've been feeling is very passionately about, being able to take action, especially now. Speaking of, in the age of climate anxiety, defined by Yale sustainability experts as feelings of distress about climate change and its impacts on landscape and human existence, what is something that grounds you in your work and keeps your head above water?
Oh.
If you've ever felt your head was above water.
The climate crisis is hard for all of us who think much about what it portends for us, for our kids, for grandkids, and people in generations to come. The thing that we know, though, is how to solve the problem, at least in broad strokes.
Yeah.
The technology and the systems are fairly well understood at this point. The technology to transform our economy off of fossil fuels is scalable now and affordable in most every sector that we need to transform the economy. Now, transforming the economy is no small thing, and doing that takes public support and it takes policy support. And I think what we're missing right now is not the knowledge and understanding of how to address the climate crisis, but the political will to really address it. So I don't, what I have, I wouldn't call climate anxiety. I have political anxiety. And what keeps me up at night is wondering if we all, as human beings, have the political will to do what we need to do to create the world that we want to live in. I think we do. I'm hopeful at my root, in my heart.
Yeah.
I think we will succeed in time, but it's not going to happen without setbacks, without protest, like back in 1970, like now in 2025. It won't happen without all that and without a lot of people who are working in hundreds and hundreds of different ways to try to solve these problems. That's how I address my anxiety, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, I think you mentioning having hope at your core, I think work in this field is innately grounded in some kind of optimism because, as you said, we are transforming and imagining a new world. And to do that, I think inherently takes some kind of hope, just that there could be another world that we could get to if we all commit to it or figure it out. Or
I like to use the word hope instead of optimism. To me, being optimistic means you think things will turn out right just because you think they'll turn out right. Hope to me implies some belief in the action of human beings and in the goodness of human spirit. And I think we will rise up and we'll do the right thing when it comes down to collectively. I don't know all the pathways we need to travel down to get there, but I do have that hope that people will come together and solve this problem like we've solved many problems over the years and over the decades.
Absolutely. I think a lot of times we think of hope as a fragile thing, but actually I think hope is something that you have to commit to, and it has to be very tough and have a lot of grit.
Hope is tough. Hope is strong. Hope has power.
Yes, hope has power. I like that. Last question I had for you is, you've been at the Ecology Center a long time. What have been some of your proudest achievements?
Well, we've talked about a lot of them. I mean, I'm really proud of what we've done in Ann Arbor with recycling and zero waste and building a culture and a system of programs that work, and they've changed greatly and evolved over time. I'm very proud of building coalitions with labor unions and workers to enact some of the strongest community and worker right to know laws that there are in the country, right here in Michigan. I'm proud of work we've done to get rid of toxic chemicals by closing medical waste incinerators across the state of Michigan. We led campaigns to close down solid waste incinerators in Detroit and in Southeast Michigan over many years. I helped, back in the 1990s and 2000s, there was great stress on farmland in Southeast Michigan, and we worried about local food systems being paved over, essentially, and the Ecology Center and other groups worked with local farmers and farm groups to develop the Ann Arbor Greenbelt program, the Washtenaw County Natural Areas program, and other land preservation programs that have saved more than 10,000 acres of land, and the work to build out transit systems in car-crazy Michigan, and to develop climate programs in Ann Arbor, Washtenaw County, and throughout the state of Michigan are all things I'm very proud of. And I'm leaving out a whole bunch of other things. But what I've mostly been proudest to do is to be able to work with people and communities in addressing environmental health and justice problems right where they live.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. And thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. It's been fun.
Absolutely. You can learn more about the Ecology Center at ecocenter.org and more about 820 by visiting 820.org. Have a question you want to ask to a sustainability expert in the city of Ann Arbor? Let us know at sustainability@a2gov.org. This has been Greenlight. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you again soon.